Greetings! Last week I had a trip to make to a hamfest, and I was gonna be alone in a car for a few hours and decided that I would want to do some HF radio. And well, I did not have any HF antenna rig for the small car. So I scratched my head on how I could mount an HF antenna on a small car like this, and I remember that I had this 3-bike rack, and I've had this for 25 years, and it had the right hitch size there, so all I needed was some adaptation, a plate or something, to mount the HF antenna and see whether it would work. So it was easy for me to cut this plate. Actually, I didn't even have to cut the plate, it had the right size already, and all I had to do was to drill a few holes, and these are previous holes obviously, and just clamp this thing onto the rack. I had to add pieces of aluminum pipes here because there's no horizontal bar from the bikes here that keep these things apart, and this thing would not clamp down strong enough. So I added 2 pieces of aluminum tubing here, and that's all that was needed. So clamp very hard. It is solid, and did also add this SO239 to 3/8 fitting for my Hamstick antennas. I have a Hamstick antenna for each of the 5, actually 6 bands from 80 to 6 meters, the classic bands, and I thought I'd try to see how this thing would work. And obviously I added a ground strap that connects to the frame right inside the trunk, and did add a disconnect here to ease on the disconnection of the thing, and it's gold plated, former power pin of some kind. I forgot exactly where it came from, but it's rugged, and I do add a piece of tape here to hold it together when I'm on a long trip. So tied this thing to the plate near the mount, near the base, and did add a ferrite, like EMI reducing ferrite, to reduce the currents on the shield, because I noticed that without this we can have a lot of variations. When I touched the shaft here, we had a lot of variations on the SWR. With this small ferrite bead added, clamp on ferrite, that's all it takes now. It's very stable. Okay, and as far as performance goes, well, you see 1.3, 1.4 VSWR on the 20 meter band, and I can tell you I can load from 80 to 10 meters with this setup here. 6, it doesn't really work. It's too high in frequency. Resonance is too high, and I believe for 6 meters, considering the wavelength, it's probably best to have a mount on the rooftop, magnetic mount, and use the plane as a ground plane. Here it's more of a counterpoise than anything else, this whole setup and the car itself. So it works well. It's temporary, but for the amount of HF radio that I do, it's sufficient. Now a comment: make sure you tighten these really hard, because there are ground contacts that happen here, 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 and if it's loose with vibration, the VSWR, so the standing wave, will vary with a lot of swing of the antenna, for example. Once it's tightened hard, it is a stable setup. Okay, other thing I've added is a string to support the Hamstick antenna. I do not really trust the Hamstick antenna as far as strength in 120 kilometer per hour winds, like on the highway. So I've added this 20-pound monofilament fishing line, and I've had this for many years on my other mobile setup, and it works great. It never breaks. Sun doesn't affect or anything. So a 20-pound test fishing line, and it's a temporary hook that I place here, and that keeps the antenna, of course, with a bit of pre-tension towards the car, So with the wind, everything is under tension, but there's not too much stress here, and not too much stress on the fiberglass shaft. So that's the setup, and like I said, I can use this from 80 to 10 meters. It does pick up some ignition noise, more obviously when you're connected to the cigarette lighter, but on battery with the IC705, it is still manageable, and this may also reduce the amount of noise that's coupled on the system, because car ignition does leak into reception, even though I'm on battery, on the IC705 battery. I do pick up a significant amount of noise, but with this, I haven't tried it yet with it while driving, but I'm pretty confident that since it reduces the common mode current on the coax, on the outside shield, that it will somehow improve the amount of noise that's coupled from the ignition. Something to see. You can add another one if you wish. If one's not enough, you can add a second one. There are different shapes and sizes. This is just an EMI filter, basically. It's a ferrite filter, clamp-on. You find those in hamfests. I mean, this one is a TDK, I believe, TDK ferrite, but some are no name and they will still work. It's not critical. So there you go. That's my mobile setup. Temporary, of course, but I did have some fun while driving with this. All for now. 7-3.